Hey, what's going on? I'm Alex Southey, and you are listening to another episode of Your Worst Song. On this episode, I have Peter Landi. He and I have kind of circled each other in the Toronto music scene for a little while, um, but haven't had the pleasure of meeting very often, if at all, in person, actually. But I believe he lived above a close friend of mine for a while, because I remember that close friend of mine reaching out and going, "You should talk to this guy. He's a cool guy, and he's doing like cool music," and that is the case. We talk about the fact that he's playing now his own music, the Peter Landi Band, or Bandy, but he also plays with Juliana Riolino. He talks about how he met her. He plays with, basically, he has a funny story kind of for every band that he's joined. Something that I thought was pretty interesting is he's American. I did not know that. He gives Canadian energy quite a bit to me. Not only in the way that he dresses, but just his vibe. So I wonder what you all think about that. He's from Long Island, and like I say in the interview, I thought that was like fucking Long Island, bro. But he has no accent. He has zero accent. Uh, just a lovely vibe. Just a lovely vibe. A little bit like my chat with Jaguar Son last week. These people just exude a contagious calmness. I hope you feel that in this case. And I hope you check out Peter's music and the associated acts that he plays with, their music. It's all kind of, other than what he's doing now is mostly under the banner of rock, as wide as that is. Some of it is more like roots rock, some of it is more um, indie folk rock or something like that. So lots to talk about, lots of cool stories, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm Alex Southey, and you are listening to Your Worst Song.
That intro, it's so funny. It's always like, where do you look? What do you do for the first 5-second countdown? How's your day been? That's usually how I start. Like, what did you get up to prior to this?
Not too much. Slept in a little bit. It's rainy here, as you know, and our bedroom's down in our basement, so it's kind of like it's a bit of a cave. So on a rainy day, it's like it's a good day to sleep in. Not too much. Just kind of like doing stuff around the house, and just getting ready to chat.
Is that having the basement and then the rainy weather? Is that like gloomy or is it cozy? Because I could feel like it rides that line.
I would say I think cozy.
Okay, gloomily
cozy.
Yeah.
Gloomy. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I would agree, especially on a day where, your responsibility is as something as simple as a podcast or something. That's probably nice.
No, it's been a good day. Had coffee.
What kind of is there a favorite coffee spot around you that you like?
Yes, I love Philosophy on Bloor.
Oh, okay.
Near the Long and McQuaid there.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you stumble onto that? Like, why that?
Well, so there was another spot on College and Rush Home. There was this Italian place called Barocco Nino, I think, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Okay.
And that was our spot. And they had amazing croissants. They were like my favorite croissant that I would get.
Mm-hmm.
And they also had really good coffee. I would just make like simple French press, sort of thing at home. But
yeah, I
would get beans there, and not this past January. I guess January of 2024. I usually do like I'll do like dry January. My partner Kristen and I will try and do like a month-long yoga challenge, and then
nice.
I also, which is great.
That is
great way to like reset the year. And then like when we're in the challenge, like I just try and take it for like as long as I can, sort of thing.
Sure.
We got really into yoga during the pandemic. It was awesome. But
it's a good thing to get into. I mean, at least it was a health trend you got into, as opposed to like we got really into cigars.
Yeah. Oh yeah, our humidor collection just went through the roof.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So sorry, that January I also decided, I was like, I'm gonna try doing no sugar, which means no pastries. Like I'm a pretty big pastry guy, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna take the month off of all that stuff. It was pretty intense. Like the whole time I even if I was just like sitting on the couch watching TV, mentally I felt like I was just like, always like at a 10, just like ready to go. It was really weird.
Oh, that sounds rough.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, definitely helped for some things, but when you're just trying to like wind down at the end of the day or just like watch whatever show, and you're just like, I want a croissant.
It's so funny that during dry January, it wasn't like, oh, I would love a beer. You're like tapping your knee like an addict, but it's for a croissant.
I want an apricot croissant. Yeah, it was just like, some days were pretty brutal. But, so anyway, end of January, like, I think I had like an eye exam and a dentist appointment that same day. And it was like, both appointments were like pretty early in the morning. Like, I'm not a morning guy. Like, I'm just hardwired to be a night owl. So like,
okay,
kind of like anything in the morning is like early for me. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll just like get up. I'll walk down to Barroco Nino, and I like tried to open the door, and I was so tired I didn't even realize that it was papered up. They went out of business.
Oh,
and I didn't know this, and I was just crushed. I like couldn't, because I was so mentally prepared and excited, and like literally for weeks had been thinking about like, oh, it's gonna be so good. And
so they fully folded, or did they move, or what?
I think they fully folded. There's a new place now, which is really good. I think it's called Gato Ghost.
Okay.
But, Philosophy on Bloor, we just kind of stumbled in there this past like fall or winter, and I was just like, this place is awesome. And it's like right by Long McQuaid, so it's like I'm there all the time. Like I'm super close to there. And so, like, just go get a coffee and then just, like, see what's on sale in the drum room.
What a life. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't really buy anything in the drum room, but...
Well, maybe this leads me to a way into your music or a way into, like, more of your life. If I don't know, do you have a, like, day job kind of thing? Or is it music is your job?
Music is my job, but aside from like playing in bands and doing sessions, I also work as a stagehand, like freelance stagehand.
Cool.
So everything is music, everything is freelance. So some months, the roller coaster ride is a bit scarier than other months, but
yes.
But it's fun, man. It's like I've been gigging and playing in bands since I was like 13, and so I know what it's like to like, play a show, load in a show, do all that stuff. But working doing the stagehand stuff's interesting because, I'm working at a lot of different venues, all sizes across the city. So sometimes you're loading in bands where it's like just the back line, or you're loading in a band at History where it's a full, they have a full production with like, lighting rigs and stuff like that. Like I try to stick more to the backline stuff just because like I know more
certainly
about that, and it's more my interest. But you learn a lot every single show, and I work with a lot of great guys and great people, and also get to see bands that I'm a fan of, and get to work their shows and stuff, which is cool. So
working their shows, that's pretty wild. Like I'm curious if you've worked anybody's shows where not just I was a big fan of these people and now I get to see them, but also like even maybe somebody that you don't even like. Like this is just a random example, but like Taylor Swift or somebody comes to town, like
right.
It would be interesting to see the entire back setup. I feel like just so any artists like that who have come where you weren't even a fan, but you were like, wow, this is a pretty interesting setup.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's so many. The Taylor Swift shows, those shows I don't really work, like the Rogers Center or Bud Stage shows.
That was just a genre example.
But like guys who I work with work those shows. Like a lot of guys that I know were like, they worked on the Metallica show when it came through town.
That's probably cool.
Like, that was a crazy setup.
Yeah.
One show of a band that like I'm a fan of and like grew up listening to, like I worked the Modest Mouse show. Like that was
very cool.
And that was that they were touring the Good News for People Who Love Bad News album. So that was pretty wild, like, you know, watching them play that record. And like, I'm just like, man, if I could tell, you know, high school Peter in art class listening to, you know, this album, like, oh, you know, and not, it's not like a, you know, crazy big deal or anything. It's just cool. It's just very, very cool.
I think
they were all they were super nice and great show. And like, yeah, it was fun.
That is a big deal. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else that like I wasn't expecting? If
you can't think of one, that's fine.
Yeah. There's honestly so many. I mean, a lot of the time, it's like, I mean, personally, I feel like I'm really out of touch with like what is hip or like who's the new, you know, person. Because like most of the time, like when I am listening to music, I'm either like learning somebody else's songs, or I'm like trying to write my own stuff. And like I also, I don't know if you're the same way, but it's like sometimes it's just like I can only take in so much music that like when I do have time off from it, it's like I just want to like watch a show or like, you know, listen to a podcast or something.
100%. Like I once I started taking songwriting more seriously and that kind of thing, I actually just began to stop listening to other music. And it wasn't like I can't. It was just like all of those functions I used to use to listen to somebody else's music now, it all would just, even if I listened to somebody else, it would lead me back to thinking about what was going on with my current writing or recording. And it just became too like reflexive in a weird way. It was, so I had to kind of stop listening to it unless I was between making albums. And I kind of know what you mean. You're just sort of burrowed in your own musical hole. And you only really know when somebody new comes along if they're like the size of Sabrina Carpenter. Like obviously we know when they reach that level, but like bigger indie bands that are coming to tour, I have no Wet Leg, you know, that's one I'm hearing about. I don't really follow though.
Yeah, like I know they're a great band, a lot of people like, but it's like I just and I'm trying to change that. Like whenever
I'm not saying it's a good habit. I'm just saying I understand.
No, a lot of the time I'm surprised, which is cool. And it's like I get to see stuff of bands that I've never heard, and then I'm like, oh wow, they were a great band. Like, and it's also cool to like you see a band come to town and they'll play Velvet, and then the next time they come around, they're at Opera House or like. So it's cool to see like bands climb the ladder, so to speak, like, and you know they're out of town, so it's kind of interesting from that side of it too.
Does that make you look at your music career differently? Of like, okay, I see the incremental climbs that these other artists that I respect are making, and you learn things on how to get to that point. I'm not saying you learn from like their management or something. I just mean generally you see how the band is approaching opportunities, and hey, the next time they're in Toronto, they're playing a slightly bigger venue.
Totally. Well, it makes me, like for my stuff, like I've only, my like Peter Landi band, like we've actually only done one show, and we're playing some shows in a couple of weeks, which I'm super psyched about.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
It's gonna be fun. But going into, because my stuff was really like a pandemic recording project, and I like how you were saying, like when you really got into songwriting and like started really focusing on it, that was the first time I could really like woodshed a single song for months and like trim all of the fat off of it and like make it super sleek and just like, you know, spend some time on it. And I was thinking to myself, I was just like, okay, when I have a band and when I can do this, I'm gonna like, you know, not overplay Toronto a lot, and like stuff that like when I was a teenager, and like I'm from Long Island originally, and so I would play with my band that I had. We would play in Manhattan and Brooklyn like twice a month, to the point where bands would like reach out to us on I don't know if it might have just been after MySpace with that band, but like around that time where like they would reach out and just be like, hey, we need a local opener, and I'm just kind of like, okay, great. But in hindsight, like we lived 2 hours away from Manhattan, but we were playing that much. And then it got to the point where it's just like, also you're in New York. It's like, like there's so much.
Yes, there's so much
cool
going on
to do.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I kind of with my stuff, I'm kind of just like trying to not put as much pressure on it and just have it be fun. And, you know, because when I was a teenager in bands, I was just like, oh, we're going to take over the world. And with this, I'm just like, let's play like a good show every once in a while. And, so far, like that's been working out. But
do you think the fact that you're sort of coming to doing your own thing late, your experience, this is probably what you're doing now yourself is probably impacted a lot by what you've learned being more supporting of other people, right? And totally. I'm curious, well, in addition to starting when you were 13, which I really want to get into, but the main thing I want to say is, so you're American?
I am American, yeah.
What do you have to say for yourself? No, I'm completely kidding.
It's crazy.
No, I wouldn't have an answer either. But no, I'm super curious. Let's go back to 13. You said you started at 13. Is that when you are still in Long Island? When do you move to Canada?
Yeah, so I grew up in a town called Sag Harbor, New York, which is like eastern Long Island. It's like in the Hamptons area of Long Island, which
it's known to be fancy, right?
It's super fancy, and like you know, I do feel strange like saying that's where I'm from because like people sometimes just might be like, oh, well, you got, you know. Yeah,
and that's not what I was meaning to imply. I was just trying to think of like the people have heard of the Hamptons in that way. It doesn't necessarily mean you were in one of those like seaside mansions, right?
Yeah. No. So, but it was a very interesting place growing up, like as a kid, because like, you know, when I was a kid, the summertime was what people think of the Hamptons, right? It's like...
Yes, okay.
It's just like a small town that happens to be in like a really beautiful area. And
people go boating and stuff, right?
People go boating. They go... Yeah. It's changed a lot since I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, Sag Harbor had like... It was kind of the last town where you could... That had like a lot of the mom and pop shops, like pizza places and ice cream, and like it was just a great place to be a kid because you could like walk around and you could, you know, hang out with your friends around town and like still like you can buy pizza for pretty cheap and all this stuff. And now, especially since after the pandemic, it's like a lot of the people that have those second summer homes and they're from Manhattan, it's like they moved out there permanently during COVID, so it completely changed like from it being a
summery, touristy somewhat. Yes, I see.
And so now it's like kind of like that all year round. So it's changed a lot since I was a kid. But you know, I'm really grateful for
of course,
growing up out there, and like my parents were and still are super supportive of like the whole music thing. Like my mom's a retired school teacher. My dad's a land surveyor. I mean, I remember vividly when I told them, like, I do not want to go to college. I want to just, like, get in the van and, like, give this a shot. They were like, okay. Like, like, it's a lot. It's a lot to just, like, kind of do that. And I'm sure
absolutely. Even if you've been showing, like, ability beyond your years, even if, like you said, you're starting at 13 and your parents had seen that and clearly if you start at 13 alone, you're going to learn something by 18, right? By the time you usually go to university. So it makes sense that your parents were willing. I have more questions about crazy. Long Island in general, because like you said, the Hamptons is famously nice. But as a Canadian who's never visited Long Island, but has devoured American pop culture, I've heard, isn't Long Island supposed to be like fucking Long Island, bro? Is it? But you're not like that at all.
No, I missed the accent.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't get it. That's more
like you come across as Canadian to me, but maybe that's because I thought you were that.
Well, it's funny. My buddy Tyler, who he plays in my band, we actually we met doing stagehand stuff, and we've recorded some of my songs together. He's like, you're the most like honorary like non-Canadian Canadian that I know. He's like, you wear like denim all the time and you love Sloan and like,
Yes.
I'm just like, yeah, man, like it's pretty funny, but
For sure.
and it's funny, like, because people that I meet for the first time, they can tell I'm American with like certain words, but then I'll come home or I'll talk to my sister and she'll be like, you have an accent now. And I'm like, so I'm kind of like riding this line. I don't think hey, it's cool.
I'm happy about it. Yeah.
Me too.
And you're wearing red and black flannel and you've got an accent. You're a Canadian, man.
Yeah. Neil Young t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Russ never sleeps. It does not.
It does not.
I want to know. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like the accent of Long Island is more Up Island, which is actually western Long Island. Up Island isn't north. Up Island means west on Long Island.
Weird.
Which is kind of interesting. And then you're not in Long Island; you're on Long Island.
Yes,
I think.
Which is, I guess, grammatically correct, but weird to wrap your head around.
Yeah, there's a few things that are.
No one says you're no one says you're on Manhattan, even though.
No, you're in it.
Yeah. Odd.
You're in the city, but I'm on Long Island.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well, what I was going to get to was I want to know exactly what you were doing at 13.
Sure. Yeah. I was playing. I had a band with my friends, and I started as a drummer. Like when I was 7 years old, like that was I just like, I tried sports. I tried doing all that stuff as a kid, and sorry, I'm kind of like rambling, trying to gather the thought. But nobody in my family plays an instrument, but I grew up listening to a lot of music. It was just always on in the house.
So your parents were music lovers, even if they weren't musicians or had any ties to the music industry.
Yes, and my grandparents, and so like I was getting a lot of, my parents grew up, loving new wave, and like they loved the Police. The Rolling Stones was always on in the house. Like I remember hearing Billy Joel, he's a huge Long Island guy. And so like when I was a kid, I grew up listening to those records, and when I was a teenager, I was like, Billy Joel, whatever, like I'm gonna I was
Piano Man, who cares?
Now I love it, and it's like that record that just like brings me back to a specific time, and they're just so good. Like The Stranger is such an incredible album.
I know exactly how that feels. Not the Long Island version, but being a Canadian, you grow up as the hat of this like pop culture powerhouse that is America that sends everything to the world. It's impossible to not keep comparing Canadian stuff to American stuff. And like I remember passing through phases where classic Canadian artists, I would like respect them for what they'd done to music history or our culture, but I would, in terms of actually liking their music or not, kind of think it was dorky or lame or silly. And now that I'm a bit older and I like have a different relationship with Canada and a different relationship with music and age, it's so funny to go back to those things and be like, no, they're geniuses for sure, and they deserve all the adoration.
Totally. Yeah. I feel the same way. And like my grandparents also, like they were music lovers, but also different styles. Like my dad's parents were like Elvis. Like I remember hearing Hound Dog as a kid for the first time, and just hearing that, and was just like, "What is this? Like this is super cool."
It's still catchy as hell. It's still catchy as hell now.
Yeah, but also just like the way. I guess I didn't know it, but like subconsciously, like the drums and the rhythm was starting to like seep into my little kid brain, and I was starting to like, I just gravitated to it just very naturally, and then my mom's my mom's mother, my grandmother was like into folk and Simon and Garfunkel and like that kind of stuff, so I got like at a young age heard that style of songwriting and things like that, which is like kind of interesting. And then when I was a kid, the stuff that like I really grabbed onto that I was like, oh, this is mine, was when I, hearing the Chili Peppers for the first time, hearing Nirvana for the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
Those bands, I was just like, whoa, this is not my parents' music. Even though like my dad was listening to it, I was just like, this this is mine. Like, this
Yes.
is something I can like really hold on to, and just like sort of planted the flag. And I was like, okay, here we go.
Well, and a lot of that music is drum forward, or you know,
yeah.
guitar and drum forward, but the drums are a focal point, unlike say folk, like what your grandmother was listening to, right? Like that's great, and it has a lot of amazing aspects to it, but it's not. No one thinks of classic folk drummers, right? That often.
No, it's true. It's true. I mean, yeah, the record for me that really did it. It was Californication. That record came out like
totally
maybe 4 months after I started, like, had the interest of playing drums.
Oh, that's perfect.
And then I think that Christmas Santa got me a snare drum with like a little
Santa
cymbal that was attached to it. He did good.
Santa has established many musicians' careers. I think he's owed a lot.
Unsung hero of
unsung hero, but celebrated every year and sung about explicitly. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
that sounds great. That's pretty interesting. So, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana. What about a little bit later? Because inevitably people's tastes kind of develop, and either they get weirder and they go, I want jazz fusion drums, or they get simpler or something. So what about that?
So yeah, when I was 13 playing with my buddies, I ended up being the singer in that band because nobody wanted to be the singer. And my buddy, Dave, was already a drummer.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, he didn't want to sing. I was like, okay, someone's got to be the singer. So like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And
Makes
so
sense.
Around that time, that was kind of the boom of like indie garage rock. So it was like the Hives, the Vines,
okay,
Interpol. You know, they were
super cool.
They were a super big Brooklyn,
New York.
bands.
Yeah, right,
New
exactly.
York,
So that's
you know,
closer to home for you. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So it was like started hearing about those bands, and I mean, the Strokes was like I think 2001 when the
It was
Strokes
a little
were,
earlier
really
than some of the others you're saying, but it's all part of the same revival of garage rock. Yeah.
Yeah, so like, I mean, they were still putting records out at that time, obviously, when I was 13. But so it was like that stuff was pretty influential. And then there was also the like Long Island emo scene too, which like my bands were never emo bands per se, but like Taking Back Sunday was a huge band. They're from Long Island.
Yeah, I remember them.
You know, at that time, My Chemical Romance was huge.
Are they Long Island?
No, they're New Jersey, but they were like. They played.
Sure.
I mean, I never saw
That's close
them
by
play on Long Island, but it was like, you know, kind of in that world. Like there was I know you guys had Much Music. We had we had Fuse. Did you ever hear of Fuse?
Maybe I've seen old clips, but it's part of MTV.
I think so, but it was kind of the like alt version of it. There was a show on Fuse called like I think it was Steven's Underground Garage or some Untitled. I forget the name, but he would like go to Warped Tour and like interview these bands.
Oh,
and so,
interesting.
Like, you would like so I was getting kind of like these two different genres thrown at me, and I mean, At the Drive-In was a huge band too. Like they weren't a band anymore, but I remember when I heard At the Drive-In, I was like, "This is wild." And then that was the time when Mars Volta was a band. And so...
And all of these bands have quite active drummers in terms of how much they're participating. Yeah.
Yes. So that was another thing is like, I still am extremely drum-centric. Like everything is drums just like all day long. But with those bands in particular, like, Mars Volta, like I heard John Theodore for the first time and I was just like, this is insane. I mean, none of my bands could play like that or were, but we thought that was cool.
Yeah, and suddenly you have a North Star that aligns with what you're into, and it doesn't mean you need to go exactly that way to be that exactly, but you have a successful example of what your taste is. Yeah.
I mean, right. I'm also trying to think of like any other, maybe not when I was a teenager, but like when I was a kid, like Green Day was a huge band too, like pretty cool. Like he was just such a cool, I mean, it's in his name. He was such a cool drummer and just like such a character that, that was pretty influential as well. So, yeah.
That's interesting. I want to talk a bit more about that last part, because you're right. He is a bit, he's almost sometimes pulling faces in the background. He's very animated in general.
Yeah.
You, as an honorary Canadian, you seem less outwardly animated, but that's interesting that that's an influence on you. How does that manifest in your playing?
I don't know. It's funny. Like when I'm playing, I just try to lately I'm just trying to focus on who I'm on stage with and kind of just focus on what's happening. I'm trying to be super,
that's very zen,
super present. Yeah.
That's the yoga poking through.
Exactly. Yeah. Namaste on stage.
Yeah. Downward dog as you're playing drums.
Yeah. I'm trying. So it's always when I'm thinking about what I have to do next is when you start psyching yourself out. And I hate that feeling. Or when you're playing in fear, it's the worst feeling. And so I always try to just kind of, try and be present, not think, shut my brain off and just do it.
Yep.
But definitely when I was a kid, and I feel like this is just natural when you're a teenager, you're getting on stage for the first time. You're just you're trying to make a show. You're trying to be a little showboaty and stuff. But nowadays I'm just trying to I don't want to be noticed. If I'm noticed, it means something's gone wrong.
Right.
I want to be just holding it down.
Yep. You want to be a supporting actor. If you're getting the attention of the lead, that something perspective is off or something happened. Yeah.
Exactly. But it is funny now doing, now being the front man of a band again, after not being one for the first time. It's not lean into the showboatiness by any means, but I now have to talk between songs and I got to work on my stage banter.
Yeah, it is a different thing for sure.
Stuff, and that I do not have fun with. Obviously you get better at it the more you do it, but it was funny. The show that we played in January, I was just hey, it was just weird. Obviously you don't want to prepare any statements or anything.
No.
But it's just I was just oh shit, I gotta
eyes are on you, kind of.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's funny.
So I'm curious, as you get through your career in your teens, you take off, you go for it, you're going to do the band thing, the music thing, you tell your parents. Inevitably you played different places in the States doing that, I assume. But again, why land in Toronto? Why not go the classic thing of you spent time in New York? All right, now I'm going to go to LA and try and make it. Or, and Nashville.
I mean, friends of mine still ask me that. They're like, what? They're happy I'm here, but they're some friends are just man, you could have gone anywhere. And for me, because where are you from? Did you grow up in Toronto or outside?
No, I was born in Vancouver but did most of my growing up in Markham, just north of Toronto.
Okay, so it's it's kind of Toronto, I would imagine maybe for you growing up in Markham was the city. It was just, it wasn't
definitely
Toronto or whatever.
Yes.
It was that was kind of New York for me because, I lived so close to it and I didn't, even though I was a visitor and I wasn't a proper New Yorker that lived and grew up in Brooklyn and Manhattan. It's I was there all the time, and my relationship with New York always involved traffic and parking and all of this stuff that just wasn't fun. And so, and it was also kind of the thing to do. You graduated high school and you go to college and then oh, I'm going to move to New York. And obviously that's amazing and that's super cool. But I just kind of I don't know. I didn't feel the pull to New York at all.
You didn't but it makes sense as you're laying it out, because it's you didn't feel the pull because you don't see it as this super duper special thing anymore because you've been exposed to it and the bad parts of it, like the traffic and everything, so much, right? It no longer has the luster that somebody from Ohio coming to New York would see it with. Yeah.
I mean, now when I'm on tour and I go there, I see it the way people see it, and now I love it. And like now I'll go to the bodega and I'm like so excited to get my sandwich and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And now I love it, and now I see it for how the rest of the world sees it, and I appreciate it now. And it's like it's really cool. Obviously, New York is an incredible place, but I just didn't have the pull, and I was on. My dad and my sister and I, we would go to shows all the time, and we were online to see Jack White. This was like 2012. He was playing Roseland Ballroom. It was like his Blunderbuss tour, his first solo tour.
I remember that.
We were, it was a great show. And we were online, and we were sitting next to this couple, and we were just chatting, and like, they're like, oh, we're in town from the show. We're from Toronto. And I was like, oh, Toronto. I was like, that's cool. And they're like, yeah, you know, we flew here like this afternoon. I was like, wow, like it's strange. It's really embarrassing, but like a lot of Americans like couldn't place Toronto on a map. Like even
though it's like a 2-hour flight.
Yeah, like it's kind of crazy. And you know, I was unfortunately like one of those people. As a teenager, I was just like, you know, obviously I'd heard of Toronto, but it's like I was just like, oh yeah, Toronto, like cool. And then I was like, you know, started chatting with them, and I was like, oh yeah, North by Northeast is in Toronto, like all this stuff. I was like, maybe I should go play some gigs in Toronto, because it would be an international tour, right?
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
So my friend Marco and my buddy Marco, I played in a bunch of bands with Marco when I was like out of high school, and did a lot of gigging with him in New York. We decided like, oh, let's go to Toronto for the weekend, and we like made it was us and our friend Mark was filling in on guitar, and so we ended up doing like he opened the show solo, and he would like change outfits, and then him and I would do a set, and then the third band was all three of us, and like so we build it out as like, it was so like,
I love that.
It was fun. It was fun that we did it, but we also did 3 shows in a weekend, where what we should have maybe done is like, because people came out to the first show.
Yes.
But the other 2 shows, like we played the Rivoli, the Cameron House, and then the Drake Hotel.
Okay.
And so the Rivoli people came out, back room of the Cameron House. This was still when it was like the front of house was like up in the like tree house thing, with like the vines and stuff.
Yes. Like
you walk in the back room and the stage was right there, whereas now it's the bar is there.
Yep.
Nobody was in there, like nobody. Yeah. And then the Drake Hotel too, like nobody came. So it was like, oh man. In hindsight, we were just trying to make a weekend out of it, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
We're, it was funny. We had a great time. It was awesome. But like now knowing how to set up a show and all that stuff, it's like, should have probably had some local openers on it.
For
maybe
sure.
Play one show and like maybe then play Hamilton or London or kind of thing.
It's tough to do a multi-night in the same city unless you're like a real established artist that would, like we just said, like if you're Beyonce, you could sell out 7 nights in a row in Toronto if you wanted to or something.
We were not Beyonce.
What? Not. Oh, why am I interviewing you? I thought you were Beyonce.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Sorry, man. But no, we had a great time. It was really fun. But that trip, I was just like, wow, Toronto is really cool. I was just like,
so even though the first show, even though that was only the like big success for you, it still was interesting enough for you. The lack of success in the other 2 shows didn't sour it?
Huh. No, I mean, because we were walking around and it was like,
What time of year was it?
August 2012. So summer, good time to be here.
Good time. Yeah.
Like seeing streetcars for the first time and like
the
CN Tower, like just cool different architecture and like
right.
I know a lot of people compare Toronto to New York, which at that time maybe I would have been like, oh yeah, like it has aspects of it, but like Toronto's its own animal. It's certainly its own thing, but
it's its own animal, and also I think it's like easy to say New York because they're sort of But what it actually is it's more like Chicago. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah, I can see that.
But anyway, sorry, continue. It's just like it was reminding me of like
I mean, it doesn't now, but at the time it was like, maybe a bit of Austin, Texas, or like Seattle, like certain neighborhoods. I
Yeah.
reminded me, because at that time I was starting to like travel and tour, and
Yeah.
but I also like loved the idea that I was just like, man, I could leave. Like at the time I was still at my folks' place. It's like I could leave home, drive, take all day, but then I'm in another country, and everything's kind of familiar, but also like slightly different. And
Yeah.
I just was like, I'm not going to run into anybody that I know. Or I was just like, it was just like a whole new.
Well, it's probably freeing in a weird way.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just like, because I mean, Manhattan is a huge city, but like I'd walk around Lower East Side with my buddy Marco, who I had mentioned, and people would be like, hey, Marco. And I was just
totally.
Like, what? Like, this is nuts.
That is nuts. But also classic New York, if I think about what I know about New York. It's all just neighborhoods, whereas everybody knows each other. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like here, too, right? It's like, we live on the West End. It's like we walk around, we see people all the time.
Totally.
It just like, that naturally happens. But at the time, I was just, like, blown away that, like,
yes,
wow, a person can just find you. Like, you could just bump into somebody in, like, the biggest city in the world. So,
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then so I started coming back for like kind of every year for like Indie Week and Canadian Music Week. We would try and come up, and every time I just really liked it and loved it, and like never wanted, just always had a great time. And and then one of those trips I met my girlfriend Kristen. So we met, and then we started dating long distance, and then after a few years, I decided to make the move, and I moved here in 2017, January 2017.
Wow, the rare example of like a long distance, 2 countries, and it worked out, and damn.
Yeah, it worked out.
That's awesome. That's sweet. Wow. And so so that makes more sense as well for Toronto. I'm curious, just because you said there are elements of it that remind you of Seattle and Austin, Texas. The obvious answer as a Canadian for Seattle is Vancouver. I assume now you've been to Vancouver before.
Yes. Yeah.
So what do you find about Vancouver? Like, because Vancouver is also Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto are like the more internationally known ones. Maybe Calgary as well because of the fucking Stampede. Yeah. But basically, what did you think of Vancouver?
I like Vancouver a lot. It's funny. Every time I've been there, it's been beautiful weather. Like,
wow, okay.
Most of the time, and same with Seattle actually, because it's usually on a tour, it's like you do Vancouver, Seattle, or
sure.
vice versa. It's like those are together.
Yeah.
And every time it's been super sunny. I mean, there's been, a couple occasions where it's like you get the rain, but, going to those places for the first time, I was just like, oh, this is going to be miserable. And then it ended up being like a really nice time.
Totally.
I haven't spent like, I'm sure you're aware. It's like you get into a town or a city, and you kind of only have like, you sort of get a certain like block radius of like a grasp on a place, because you're like, okay, we got to load in, we're at the venue, let's find coffee, let's get on the Wi-Fi, or you just like want to chill and you don't even leave the venue. So a lot of the places that I've played in Vancouver have been on East Hastings, which, as you know, is like a pretty
pretty gnarly,
wild place. But obviously that doesn't encapsulate the entire city. Like, driving around, I've had, I've always had a great time going there. So now being in Vancouver, I guess the thing that reminded me of Seattle was the CN Tower, because I was like, oh, they both have needles.
Yes, that is true.
That was maybe the main original thought I had, because obviously, Vancouver and Seattle are like way more related than,
just in general. Yes,
in general,
definitely.
Just geography and like just even like
vibe,
the architecture and vibe, and stuff like
totally.
that.
Well, I have a question. If that's the case with Vancouver, and inevitably, it's an inevitability of touring, like you said, but are there some places on tour where you have been able to, for whatever reason, spend a little bit more time there, and you go, actually, this is a pretty cool city?
Yeah. I mean, I love Nashville. I actually, I've only been to Nashville like a handful of times. A lot of the touring I've done in the past few years, like there just hasn't been a Nashville date, which is like kind of a bummer, and like kind of strange. But every time I'm in Nashville, I just love it, and
I'm pretty surprised to hear that about Nashville not being on a tour, based on who I'm remembering that like you play with and support. Considering they could like music style wise, they could totally play in Nashville.
Totally. I think this year, like I'll probably
push for that.
Hopefully be down there. But like at the time when I was. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Like, it's definitely been a few years. Like, probably since like 2019 was the last time I was in Nashville.
Okay, wow.
But
pre-pandemic is like that's a whole other.
I know.
That's like BCAD kind of shit. So
it's
true. You should go back and check it out.
Before COVID, BC.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I love Montreal. Like I love Toronto. Obviously, I live here, but Montreal is
super cool.
My favorite Canadian city, I would have to say.
It's the cool kid on the block. It's the cool kid on the block, I think.
I spend a lot of time in Calgary because my partner's from there and her family's out there. So like every summer we go out to BC, and I remember going to BC for the first time, and that just like I had so many photos of rocks and mountains on my phone, and it doesn't. The picture will never do it.
Never.
Justice, no matter like what updated version of the iPhone or whatever phone you're using, like it just is never.
That's so true. Out there, you see something every day that you want to take a photo of in nature, and then you look back at it later on your phone. You're like, this is dog shit. This looks nothing
doesn't really
like
hit. Doesn't hit the same way.
Does not hit the same way. That's funny. Well, how do you begin to get in with bands or artists like Juliana Riolino? Like, how do you begin to find steadier work with them that way?
Yeah. I moved here 2017.
Yeah.
I knew like a handful of people, but nobody that I'm like friends with now and the bands that I play with now. I moved here. I still had my band in New York that I was still like trying to get off the ground. That band was called the Glossies. We had like we were like an alt rock sort of duo. I was singing, playing guitar. My buddy Dave was the drummer.
Cool.
And it was cool. Like we had put out a record the year before, like 2016, fall of 2016. And so, but I knew I was like, I got to give this a shot. I was like, I was on a plane ride coming home after leaving Chris, and I was super bummed. And I was just like, man, what if I moved there and it like just worked out? And I like, like
it's the opposite of anxiety.
Yeah, but
that's hilarious.
I mean, I was extremely anxious, but I was just like,
I know, I'm sure
it could work. I was like, it could happen. It could go one or two ways here. I mean, there were a lot of ways it could have went. But
no. I'm just, the only reason I pointed it out is because like in therapy, I've had people say like anxiety is imagining the way it's going to go wrong. Try and trick yourself. Try and change the pathway. So the first thing you think of is, well, what if it goes right? Which is easier said than done. But that's what reminds me of what you said.
Yeah. I decided to move here, and it was interesting. Like I'm kind of backtracking a bit, but the weekend that we met, we were just chatting, being like, oh, what do you do? Blah blah blah. She's like, I'm an actor. I was like, oh, cool. Like anything I would have seen you in, which like now I know that question is like actors hate that question because it's like, whatever.
Well, it's like if they're not in something you've seen them in, that sucks. And if they are, but you haven't recognized them, that also sucks in a weird way. Like they don't want to read out their IMDb to you in the hopes that maybe you do recognize them. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but she was like, oh, I was in this music video recently for this band, Single Mothers, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" Like I'd never heard of Single Mothers before.
Yep.
And she was a fan, and so periodically when I would come up and visit, and we were on road trips or just like hanging out, like a Single Mothers song would pop up on shuffle, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" Like this band's cool. Didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
And then I moved here, 2017. It was a few months. I wasn't doing anything music wise. Like I didn't even have any gear. Like I bought, Kristen gifted me a kick drum pedal and she got me a snare drum for my birthday that year.
Wow.
from Century Drum Shop. I still use it. It's actually my main snare that I play with Jules, which is
That's cool.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
But, and other stuff, but it's a great snare drum. So that was like kind of the first gear that I started to acquire here. And so anyway, a coworker of hers was best friends with sorry, the connection is even confusing for me. So
That's okay.
Kristen's coworker was best friends with this girl who dated this guy named Mike Riley. So Mike Riley, this guy I don't know, he's looking for a drummer. And her coworker was just like, hey, I know this guy, he's looking for a drummer. Can I give him Peter's information? She's like, yeah, sure. So we trade info online, and I meet Mike. He's a great guy, and go in to do a session. And the session was at Lincoln County Social Club, John Dinsmore's studio. I don't know if you know John or have been there, but
I haven't been there.
Great spot. He's up on Davenport here. And so Mike was my first like friend that I had made kind of on my own that I didn't know before.
Right.
And so Mike and I became buddies and hung out and played on some of his stuff. And then a few months later, he was like, hey, my buddy Drew is going on tour with his band. He's looking for a guitar player, because I also play guitar. And he's like, can I give him your info? I was like, yeah, what's the band? And he's like, Single Mothers. I was like, I know Single Mothers. Yeah. I was like, I know Single Mothers. Sure. Like, send him
so
my info.
Cool.
So then I met Drew, and we chatted, hit it off, and he's like, okay, like, if you want to do this tour, like, it's 6 weeks in the States. We were opening for Touche Amore, and it was around the time Single Mothers had just put a record out called Our Pleasure. It was their second album. And he needed a guitar player. And I was like, yeah, man, sure. And it was the first time I ever played guitar in a band that I didn't write the songs. So
right. So you had to take time to learn from whatever was there previously?
Yes. So, and also it was a style of music that, like, I didn't grow up. I wouldn't say Single Mothers is a hardcore band. I always thought Single Mothers was more like an art punk band, because like every record they've had, like, Drew's the singular person, and then the band kind of changes around him for every record. So every record, it kind of sounds like a new band, but like Drew is the anchor, and like that's what makes it, be Single Mothers. So I was learning a lot. I was learning at that. I mean, they had the EP out. They had a couple EPs out. Negative Qualities was out, and Our Pleasure was out. So I was learning all of the other guitar players' parts, and everybody plays very differently. And it was also like music that I didn't grow up listening to hardcore music or really, really heavy stuff that, some of the bands that Single Mothers plays with and that stuff. So it was really like, it took me a while. Like, I went back that summer back to New York to work because I couldn't work here, but I spent like 6 weeks learning the song, and like every night I would learn a song, and then the next night I wouldn't move on to another song until I played the song I learned the night before just perfectly through. So I would stack
that
them
sounds
every
very
night.
Difficult. It would stack up every night. That's a smart way of doing it.
Yeah, and because I was just like, I don't know why I happened to do it that way, but yeah, there was like, it was a lot of material to to take in. And so,
well, clearly it worked out.
Yeah, it worked. And then eventually I moved on to playing drums because Brandon, who's the drummer in Single Mothers, he just like wanted to take a break from touring. And the way the band is kind of set up is just like, you're sort of on the bench, and like, if you can do a tour, you can. It like sort of, it doesn't wear out, but it's like you're on the bench, and it like shuffles around, and it's cool because when I was playing in the band, like we pretty much had like a set list of songs, like a set list, I guess. But even like one person comes in, it completely changes. So it's like you might be playing the same songs, but it's like it has a totally different vibe.
That's fun though. That's cool. It's stressful but cool, right?
Yeah, super cool, super fun. And it was the first time I was ever in a band like that, where it was kind of like that. So And then Drew started doing a solo project, and I started playing with Drew, his band, The Foundation, and Mike Riley was in that band as well. But so through Single Mothers, I met like Riley and Brandon, who played in the band at that time with me, and they're from like Welland and St. Catharines, Niagara area.
Okay.
And Jules is from out there, so like I had heard of Jules and was always a fan of her music. But it's just through those people. It's like you just naturally like just
the social circle starts kind of growing, and it's a natural growth.
Yeah, and then so it just kind of, it's funny, like all and then like through I'm trying to think of like the exact connection.
Yes, I need to know the exact connection to the day, please.
No, I just mean, so like Aaron, for example, Aaron Goldstein's like another dude that I play with, and it's like
totally, yeah.
I'm just trying to think of like I think through Eamon, my buddy Eamon, and then I met Eamon through some of the Single Mothers guys. Like it just kind of, you start, like it starts from like one thing, and then you just naturally kind of spreads out, and then you like put faces together and stuff like that. But it worked out. It's going good.
It's going good. Well, let's talk about your music and get into the four main questions. Like, what do you think has been your best gig? I guess normally I'm asking people, you can answer this how you want. It can be a drum gig for somebody else or your own.
Sure. Well, for my own gig, I would say, I mean, I've only played one Peter Landi, AKA Bandy. I've been calling the band Bandy, which is like
I love that.
kind of the unofficial name, but
that's great.
Was in January, and that was a great show. Like, it was really nice to play those songs. Like, I had never played those songs with anybody in a room. Like, the first time I had heard my songs, aside from me
rehearsals,
overdubbing, was at that rehearsal, and it was so cool because it's like I had it was me on drums singing behind the kit. My buddy Tyler, who I recorded, I've recorded some of my songs with. Roddy was playing bass, and then my buddy Eamon on guitar, and it's just like those guys are bringing their own thing to these songs. Like, they're playing the parts, they're doing the songs justice, but it's like
inevitably their personality comes out.
Yeah, and that's why I asked them to do the show, right? It's like, I trust them and their abilities, and I know that they're going to just bring something cool and different to the table. So that was a really great show. And then like other shows where I've been the drummer in the band, there's been a lot. I've been really lucky. Like I mean, Single Mothers shows, like every time Single Mothers played the Garrison, I always thought that was like a really special, cool thing. There was like one in particular, I think it was like the second to last Garrison show that I played. That was just a really great show, and somebody like shot that on their phone. That one's on YouTube. I forget the exact date, but that was also like after the pandemic, so it was just like this energy of like, it was nuts. The energy
that makes sense, because I was gonna say why I like the Garrison, but like why the Garrison?
Yeah, I think it was just that. I mean, that band is just such a high energy, intense show. Like after the pandemic first coming back, like it was just a ripper. Like it was insane. It was insane.
It was a cool energy at that time. Like it was weird. It was fraught with nerves because everybody wasn't sure like how, it was opening in stages or whatever. But as people started playing more, that was a cool energy in Toronto. Yeah.
And then like, I mean, some of the first shows I played with Aaron, like Aaron and I play, we have like he's got a Neil Young worship band called Weld, where we do like all of the Neil and Crazy Horse stuff. And the first time we played at the Shoe, like I felt like the stage was floating. Like it was nuts. We like tapped into that like present state that you want to be in. Like we got into the flow state, or at least I did. Like I just felt really good about that show. And I mean,
I mean those are good answers.
Yeah, played a great show with Jules this weekend. First show of the year. Like, we were at La Nivanya this past weekend. And,
Oh,
like,
yep.
first show in like 6 months. That was a great show. Like, great
Sweet.
crowd. You
And
know?
remind me where that is. Remind me where Lanya.
St. John's.
Okay.
St.
Yes.
John's.
Yeah. Right.
And
Maritimes.
I'd never been there, and like that was cool. And
Sweet.
yeah. There's
Cool.
been a lot. I've been lucky. It's been fun.
Well, let's talk about how you've been unlucky. So, what about worst shows?
Well, I've played hundreds of shows to nobody.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people have, and that's
Certainly.
that's just the way it goes. But
Yep.
I thought about this, and there's one show in particular that was like pretty bad. That
Okay.
kind of actually will be nice to talk about because it's
all right.
a sort of therapeutic sort of way. But it was it was my band that I mentioned, the Glossies. We had like just put out our record, and we got booked to play like a pretty hip place in Brooklyn, opening for. I won't mention the other person's name, but like
Sure.
it was like a person who was just like at the time was on the up, and like it was cool to be at this person's show, and like we
we
really
would listeners might recognize the name, kind of thing.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
and
gotcha.
We like really had no business being on this bill, like just
Okay.
genre wise. Like we were a very loud like we were trying to do like, you know, Nirvana essentially and Dinosaur Jr. Like those were my influences heavily at the time. So it was like, you know,
big muffs and loud.
Yes, super loud, like rim shot drums. Like, you know, at an indie rock Brooklyn show is not really the thing.
Okay.
Like we would clear the room really most times that we played in Brooklyn. Like we were good. Like I'm not downplaying. It was just like
it's the nature of the volume.
Yeah, and just like I feel like a lot of the shows that we played at that time, like they weren't. Like we just weren't. We would just do gigs to do gigs because we're like, oh, we got to do a show. Like it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about like, well, let's book a show where it's billed correctly and not like overplay and all this stuff. Like we were still learning at the time instead of like just saying yes to everything. So, yeah, we were playing the show and it was like technically the record release of the show, and we like got on and we were super loud and like I could see people were leaving, but then the people that were trickling in, I think they were coming for the DJ set that was after us.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were playing, we were doing our thing, and like I just saw people like dancing in the crowd and like air guitar. Like they were having in hindsight, they were having a great time, but I thought they were making fun of what I was doing. Like I
Brooklyn
had a
hipster
flashback.
irony. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I also had like, you know, I thought like I had flashbacks to like when I was in middle school, high school playing shows, and it was like the jocks would come and not come to the gig and make fun of you, but it was like, you know, had flashbacks to like
I know
that
what you mean.
kind of stuff. And you know, in between songs, I was just like, you know, talking to them and like kind of just being like, kind of calling them out in a way. And they were just looking at me, just being like, what is this guy?
Because now you know in
like,
hindsight, they were probably just having a good time.
Yeah, they were just having a good time.
Yeah.
And so like I was just not very nice and like it was so in my head, that show. And it was also like, we had built it up to this thing where it was like, okay, we're playing at this place, like this show has to be good. You know, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then I think, it just like went downhill from there. Like some people came up on stage like during our last song and started dancing. And I was just like, no way. I was just like, you have to I was like, no. Like when really in hindsight, what I should have done is just like, dance with them and been
totally
cool and just like rock
even
out
if
with
it
them.
And even if it did piss you off internally, it's like when somebody makes you the butt of the joke, it's probably better in the moment to laugh it off than stomp your foot and get angry, right?
Totally. And it just wasn't, you know, I'm older now.
Of course.
See that it's just like, you know, shit happens, and that's a show. Like anything could happen at a show, and you can't let it phase you. And so that was probably the worst show. And like I got off stage, and my buddy Marco, who I've mentioned a bunch of times in this interview, he was at the gig. He was just like, dude, are you all right? Like what was it? Like you were like, I was not myself. My girlfriend Kristen, she was there, like she had flown in to see the gig. She was like, you were a jerk, man. Like, I was just like, oh my God. Like, so for days I was like, oh man, like brutal. That was not a fun show. But you know,
but you took a lesson from it, which is what you can do. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
And you know, so yeah, that was a bad one.
Okay. No, great answer. What a follow up that I have usually with the gig questions is green rooms. Did any green rooms that you've played as a touring musician stand out? And it doesn't need to be like everything was gold. It can be just interesting.
An interesting green room. I mean,
or fancy, you know, but whatever's interesting.
Yeah. No. I mean, I find that the fancy ones are kind of just like they're great. But
yeah, they're like simply fancy. Yeah.
Yeah, the interesting ones. I mean, not great ones are like when you're just in the like utility closet and you're like around the stacked chairs and like you can't even like do anything. Green room.
It's also okay if you don't have an answer.
Yeah. I mean, I will say the new green room at the Horseshoe Tavern is pretty nice. They've extended it. They've opened it up. It's like no longer the little. It's like they've extended it, which is pretty nice.
I saw that recently. That's pretty great. Okay, good shout out. Good local shout out.
Yeah,
and it's green. That's true. Too many people forget that fact.
Yeah,
that requirement.
Yeah.
Okay, well then let's get into your music and answering best and worst song. I know your music. You're closer to the start of it than say you playing with the other musicians that you do, but I would never make you choose one of their songs. So, I'm curious
I love all their music.
Of course, I'm sure.
I love all their music. Yeah.
So for yourself, how do you want to answer this?
Yeah. So like you're saying, I don't have a massive back catalog that I can really like dive into of Peter Landi stuff, and like I certainly
Bandy.
stand. Yeah, Bandy. Thank you.
Yeah.
I stand behind the work. You know, like I do take a lot of time and like make sure that what I'm putting out is, you know, at least just for me, something that like I want to listen to, and I can just be like, yeah, that's a great song. I like it. So yeah, I've thought about this. I would say I think my best song is a song that I have called Drive. I really like that song.
Drive. Okay.
Drive. It's wrote it during the pandemic, came to me very quickly, and I just think it's a really cool song. I play slide guitar on it, which is something that I don't do, so I kind of like had to learn and figure it out when I was writing, because I heard the part in my head.
Okay, I was going to ask, what led you to that if you hadn't already started with it? That's interesting. You just knew it, like this part has to be a slide.
Yeah, like I knew the song. I wanted it to kind of be like, I was going for like the verses kind of channeling the Pixies, like dark Pixies, like kind of.
Love it. I love the Pixies.
Have a song. I love them.
Yeah.
They're one of my favorite bands. I think they're the best band I've ever seen live. They're incredible. Just so good. But they have one of their newer records, Indie Cindy, there's a song on it, I think called Magdalena, I think is the name. And it's just this like really cool, dark, chugging guitar song. And I was like, that's kind of I wasn't like trying to rip that completely, but I was like, that just kind of
it can inspire you to do your own thing.
Yeah, and then like when I was playing it, I was like, oh, this is kind of reminds me of. So in my head, I was then like, oh, I need to sort of come up with like a part that Joey would play, like a super like high kind of like gain, just like weird, maybe dissonant sort of lead.
Yeah.
And then I also was like, picked up the slide and I was like, oh, this kind of has like a deserty vibe, and then that kind of made the chorus this like, you know, you're driving through the desert. The song's about drive.
Yes.
Driving around, listening to music, and
that's perfect.
It's a drive song. So I really like that song a lot, and I've you know, going back and having to like learn those songs for the show I played and the shows that I'm playing in a couple weeks, or not sure when this will be coming out, but maybe it's the shows have happened or they're going to happen in a couple days, but anyway, learning these songs, I was like, I love this song. That's a really good. I'm proud of that one. That's
very pure. You get to listen to it and you go, I love this song. That's great. That makes it a good answer for this question.
Yeah,
that's great.
So drive. Yeah.
So basically, the reason, if I can summarize it, you kind of the reason this is like your best is because you achieved what you imagined you wanted for this song.
Yeah, I mean, so it's funny because like I feel that way with the other songs that I've written and I've put out, but I guess it just boils down to like I like the song. I really like the chorus.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's like I think I hit on some like relatable lyrics and like
Yeah.
I mean maybe you've had this feeling of like there are just certain songs you hear in a car that just hit way differently than if you're like, you know. So I was trying to go for that. And,
no, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
yeah. Okay. Well, then let's talk about the opposite. What do you think is your worst song?
Worst song. So again, Stand by the Work. But
yes,
thinking about it, I think my worst song is a song I have called IOU.
Okay.
And one of the reasons least played out of my
okay,
songs,
sure.
Looking at the numbers. So
right, you've answered it with like, objective like metrics. You can see. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, metrics they're not looking good for IOU. But I also like when I listened to that song at the time, I when I was doing the vocals, I was like, I kind of did it in one take. And I was like, I felt good about it. And I was like, okay, maybe then that should be the take. And now listening back, there are like certain things that only I hear that no one else hears that I'm like, I should have like maybe, you know, and I spent a ton of time trying to get a vocal on that song. But as you know, it's like, you're never going to get a perfect thing. And that's something that I'm really trying to work on. And like, I'm a perfectionist when it comes to like my own stuff and like just playing and, you know, because it's going to last forever, right? It's like,
yes, it's going to last forever. It's going to last forever. But something that helped me when I struggled with that same thing is thinking about the fact that the word is record. It's like a moment in time.
Yes.
It can change and you can develop it over time. There are no rules. If in 3 years you want to go back and you go, you know what, it's bothering me enough, I'm going to make a new version. Do it. This is the Wild West of art, you know? But true. I do understand though.
Yeah. So yeah, just for those reasons. Again, like I think it's a great song. Like that one, I was really going for like Tom Petty, "Damn the Torpedoes" kind of vibe.
Great record.
And I great record, and I think I nailed that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy with. But yeah, some of the vocal performance on that one, I'm kind of just like, maybe I could have like, you know, done another take or two. Or just like
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that from like a wanting it to sound as like a product as good as possible. But the cool part of what you did, warts and all, is the fact that when you say vocal performance, in this case, it actually is, as opposed to something. And I'm not saying that's a bad way to do it. That's sometimes how I do my vocals, is like little pieces and pulling. But in this case, it's an actual performance. So it's cool. And my guess is, even though there are some warts, to use the aforementioned word, it's going to sound more human than if every part was a 10 out of 10.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but still, answer makes sense. So like, I was, as you were answering that, I was also trying to do the mental math of when this will come out, so that you can promote stuff, I guess, if it makes sense to you. I think this will probably be early July for those listening.
Okay.
That's early next month.
The shows have happened. They went great.
Yes. Okay. The shows have. So what about July onward? What anything coming, either for yourself or supporting or whatever?
Yeah. July. I've got Jules has a couple things in July, playing Dawson City with her, which I'm super psyched about, going to the Yukon.
Yeah, wow,
we're all
cool.
super psyched for that one.
Yeah.
I'm playing Ottawa Blues Festival with a band here called the Sarandons, which is pretty cool. Great indie rock band. Started doing some session work with them.
Is that named after Susan?
I should ask them.
Okay, yeah.
I thought so, but
I would assume so.
I would assume so.
That's the only famous Sarandon that I know. But anyway, okay, so that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I'm trying to go through my mental calendar, but yeah, the summer's really big. Yeah,
if you're curious, people listening to this, just follow, look at Peter's socials and stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, but it's going to be a great summer. I'm super, super psyched getting to play with a lot of, awesome people and friends and shows. And
every time I see a post from you, it's always something pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I'm feel very lucky and grateful, and just
you exude that. It's good. You exude that, so that's a good thing.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
I tried it. Yeah, thanks.
For sure. Well, look, at the end, I usually just have the person restate their name and the name of the worst song choice, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. My name's Peter Landi, and my worst song is IOU.
There you go. Thank you. Awesome. Actually, you know what? I'm not gonna. Normally, I cut it off right here, but I'm gonna add this for people listening. There are copyright issues that are happening with Spotify, where I used to tag on the worst song to the end of the episode. They're being pulled now in some cases, or I'm having to fight them. So, with that said, for fans and of the podcast, and for you, just so you know, I probably won't play your song at the end of this. But Spotify lets you choose like related song links or something now when you put out a podcast. So I'll choose that. Is it up on Spotify?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
That's streaming everywhere. So
okay, then great, perfect. But yes, thank you so much for coming on. I thought this was a great conversation.
Man. Thanks for having me. I'm a fan of the podcast.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's great.